History is filled with stories of survival, of rulers who faced impossible odds and emerged forever changed. Yet, among these tales, few are as stark, dramatic, or as revealing of the human spirit as that of Empress Irene of Byzantium. Her journey is one of ambition, cunning, and the relentless struggle for power in a world dominated by men. In 780, after Emperor Leo IV's sudden death, Irene became regent for her 9-year-old son, Constantine VI. The empire was vulnerable, and the fate of the dynasty rested on her shoulders. Her late husband's 5 half-brothers, all sons of a previous emperor, saw an opportunity in this moment of weakness. They began to plot, hoping to seize the throne for themselves. The conspiracy was quickly uncovered. These were not ordinary men, but powerful princes with deep connections in the palace and the army. Their ambitions threatened to plunge the empire into chaos. For many in the court, the idea of a woman ruling, even as regent, was unthinkable. Whispers of dissent echoed through the marble halls, but Irene acted with remarkable decisiveness. The brothers were arrested, their heads shaved in a humiliating tonsure, and they were ordained as priests, publicly disgraced and forever barred from claiming the throne. Forced to serve Christmas communion in the Grand Hagia Sophia, they became living warnings to anyone who might challenge Irene's rule. Their fall was both a spectacle and a message. Yet, the threat did not end there. Resentment simmered beneath the surface, and new conspiracies continued to brew in the shadows of the palace. Irene's response grew even harsher. Blinding and exile became her brutal tools, wielded without hesitation in the ruthless world of Byzantine politics. This first great test revealed Irene's intelligence, her strategic mind, and her willingness to be ruthless when necessary. She was not just a caretaker, but a true ruler. Against all odds, Irene survived the first challenge to her authority. But in the treacherous world of Byzantium, she knew many more would follow, and she would need all her strength to face them. The great palace was a golden cage, a labyrinth of intrigue and ambition, where every shadow seemed to conceal a secret. Its marble halls echoed with the footsteps of those who schemed for power, and its gilded chambers were as much a prison as a throne. Irene, an Athenian orphan chosen for her beauty and poise, now found herself the unlikely guardian of an empire. She was thrust into a world where her every move was watched, her every word weighed for hidden meaning. Every courtier, servant, and guard could be a spy, each with their own loyalties and ambitions. The palace was alive with rumors, and trust was a rare and precious commodity. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Even the walls seemed to listen, and betrayal could come from the most unexpected places. She was a woman in a man's world, surrounded by rivals in the military, bureaucracy, and church, each eager to test her resolve and undermine her authority. Many saw her as a mere placeholder, a temporary figure until her young son came of age. Few believed she could truly rule in her own right, but Irene was determined to survive. She built a network of loyal supporters, carefully placing trusted people in key positions throughout the palace and government. Her greatest challenge was the army, fiercely loyal to the Isaurian dynasty and the iconoclast tradition that defined the empire's recent past. Irene, an iconophile at heart, clashed with powerful military factions who saw her religious views as a threat to their own influence and the empire's stability. A failed campaign in 782 gave her enemies an opening, and soon whispers of a coup filled the palace corridors. The air was thick with suspicion and fear. She responded swiftly, purging disloyal officers without hesitation and promoting those whose loyalty to her was unquestioned, rewarding them with power and responsibility. She cultivated allies in the church, understanding that spiritual authority could be as powerful as military might. And she relied on influential eunuchs, especially her chief minister Staurakios, whose loyalty and cunning helped her navigate the treacherous waters of court politics. Together they secured her position, at least for now. But in the great palace, survival was never guaranteed, and every victory brought new dangers. Before she was empress, Irene was an orphan from Athens, born around 752. Her early years were marked by uncertainty and modest means, as she grew up far from the glittering heart of the Byzantine Empire. Athens at this time was a city of faded glory, its ancient monuments standing as silent witnesses to a more illustrious past. Athens was a provincial backwater, and Irene's family was noble but obscure. They held little real power, living quietly among the ruins of a once great city. Yet even in obscurity, Irene's upbringing instilled in her a sense of dignity and resilience that would serve her well in the years to come. In 768, Emperor Constantine V sought a bride for his son Leo, organizing a bride show across the empire. This elaborate event brought together noblewomen from distant provinces, each hoping to be chosen for a life at the imperial court. Irene was chosen. Her beauty and lack of powerful relatives made her a safe choice. She was seen as unlikely to threaten the emperor's authority, yet her intelligence and poise set her apart from the other candidates. She married Leo in 769 and became empress, but her role was limited under her domineering father-in-law, a staunch iconoclast. The court was a place of strict hierarchy, and Irene was expected to be obedient and discreet, her influence tightly controlled. Irene, from a region that cherished icons, had to hide her true beliefs. The tension between her private faith and public duty was a constant source of anxiety, forcing her to practice her devotion in secret. She found solace in quiet moments, clinging to the traditions of her homeland even as she navigated the treacherous politics of Constantinople. For over a decade, she lived in the shadow of powerful men, learning the complex rules of court. Irene observed, listened, and adapted, slowly building alliances and understanding the subtle currents of power that flowed through the palace. The birth of her son, Constantine VI, in 771 secured her position. As the mother of the heir, Irene's status was elevated, and she gained a new sense of purpose and influence within the imperial family. When Leo became emperor, he remained an iconoclast, and Irene continued to conceal her sympathies. The court was divided, and Irene's careful balancing act became even more precarious as religious tensions deepened. A story claims Leo discovered icons hidden in her chambers, causing a rift before his death. This incident, whether fact or legend, reveals the risks Irene faced in defending her beliefs. Whether true or not, it highlights the dangerous religious divide of the era, a divide that would shape Irene's destiny and the fate of the empire itself. With Leo IV's death, Irene became regent for her young son. The imperial system was built for male rulers. A woman in power was an anomaly. Irene made it clear she was more than a caretaker. Her name appeared before her sons on official documents and coins. She attended Senate meetings, presided over councils, and made key appointments. Her boldest goal ending iconoclasm, the state policy of destroying religious images. As a devout iconophile, she moved carefully, appointing Tarasios as patriarch and planning a church council. Her first attempt in 786 failed when iconoclast troops broke up the meeting. Undeterred, she sent rebellious troops away and reconvened the council in Nicaea in 787. The Second Council of Nicaea restored the veneration of icons, a major victory for Irene. As Constantine VI grew, he resented his mother's dominance. Encouraged by his circle, he sought to assert his authority. In 790, a conspiracy in the army aimed to remove Irene and make Constantine sole ruler. Irene demanded the army swear loyalty to her alone, a miscalculation. The soldiers refused and proclaimed Constantine as emperor. Irene was placed under house arrest. Her reign seemed over. But Constantine proved ineffective, making poor decisions and alienating supporters. Within 2 years, he recalled Irene, restoring her as co-ruler. The trust between mother and son was broken, setting the stage for a final confrontation. The iconoclast controversy defined Byzantine politics and faith. It began in 726, when Emperor Leo III banned the veneration of icons, seeing it as idolatry. Iconoclasts destroyed religious images. Iconophiles defended them as windows to the divine. The conflict tore society apart. Monasteries were suppressed, monks persecuted. Irene, raised in iconophile Athens, hid her beliefs under iconoclast rulers. The army, loyal to iconoclasm, saw military victories as divine approval. Challenging this risked revolt. As regent, Irene carefully planned the restoration of icons. Her first attempt failed, but she persisted, removing opponents, appointing a new patriarch, and convening the Second Council of Nicaea. In 787, icons were restored, ending the first period of iconoclasm and reshaping the empire's religious identity. The truce between Irene and Constantine VI was fragile. Irene, back as co-ruler in 792, plotted to secure her power. Constantine's personal scandals, especially his controversial divorce, alienated his supporters. Irene watched as her son's actions weakened his position. In 797, her loyal minister Staurakios led conspirators to seize Constantine. He tried to escape but was captured and brought to the Porphyry Chamber, the place of his birth. On Irene's orders, Constantine was blinded, a brutal act that shocked the empire. He died soon after, removing the last obstacle to Irene's absolute rule. With her son gone, Irene stood alone as ruler. She claimed the male title Basileus, emperor, on coins and documents. Her 5-year reign as sole ruler was complex. She was celebrated for restoring icons and providing economic relief. But her ministers, Staurakios and Aetios, became bitter rivals, weakening the government. The palace was again a center of intrigue. In 800, Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne as Emperor of the Romans, challenging Irene's legitimacy. The West argued a woman couldn't rule, using her gender to justify a rival empire. Talks of a marriage alliance with Charlemagne emerged, but negotiations stalled. Before any agreement, Irene's reign came to an abrupt end. Irene's reign ended as it began, with conspiracy. In 802, officials led by Nikephoros seized power while Irene was absent. She was exiled to Lesbos, her wealth confiscated. Once empress, she now supported herself by spinning wool. She died in exile less than a year later. Irene is remembered for her brutality, especially blinding her son, but also for her skill and courage. She survived in a world hostile to women in power, governing for over 2 decades. Her greatest legacy was restoring icons, shaping Orthodox Christianity. Irene's story reminds us of the remarkable women who shaped history, defying expectations and seizing power. Leadership and ambition aren't defined by gender. Her story and others like it deserve to be told. To learn more about powerful women in history, subscribe and join our community. There are always more stories to uncover.